Okay, we'll just start right into this. I want to talk about Black history and how different people view Black history. So I'm going to be talking about this from an integral perspective. Now, integral theory is based off of spiral dynamics. And spiral dynamics is this idea that there are set stages that people progress in life. And as people progress, there's certain things that their values are centered around. So if you don't understand integral spiral dynamics, go back to my earlier videos and get a understanding of framework of spiral dynamics. So from there, I'm going to actually start talking about different views of spiral dynamics in each value mean. So I'm going to start off with the red value mean, because red is about the lowest value meme that people you're going to interact with day to day are going to enter into. So the red meme is more of egocentric, it's about domination, and it's about power. It's about us versus them, or me versus the world kind of a situation. So I see red meme Black history as the history of white people being against us and us having to fight against white supremacy. And it's just us versus white supremacy. So this worldview is something exemplified by a man like Franz Fanon. So if you go back in history, Franz Fanon, he was a Caribbean person of French Caribbean descent. I can't think of the country he's from right now. But he was a Black man who was one of the first Black men to have a psychology degree in France. And he fought in the Freed French Army. So in World War II, the Nazis took over France, and the Resistance Army originally was mainly Africans and Caribbeans. And Franz Fanon was one of these men that fought in the Freed French Army. Another one for you Americans, because I know Americans love thinking about us. Thelonious Monk, Black American, was a fighter in the Freed French Army. And if you go to one of his album covers, I'll try to have a link in the description box to his album cover. He's actually got a Nazi tied up and he's holding a machine gun and playing the piano. That album cover was inspired by something that he did while he was fighting for the Freed French. So the Freed French Army eventually liberates France. But before they get to invade Germany, they kick everybody Black out of the Freed French Army. And so that's something that Franz Fanon never forgot. So once he left World War II, he joined the Algerian resistance movement. And the Algerians fought against the French to free Algeria from their rule. So he wrote 2 books. One of them was Blackface, White Mask. And I can't think of the other one right now. I'm drawing a blank. But again, just go to Amazon.com, Franz Fanon. You'll find all his books. But Franz Fanon saw the world from the standpoint of Black people needed a race war. And this race war, we would fight against whites. Now, he didn't even believe himself we would win. But he understood that if we can go and fight and show how strong we are, after that fight, we could be respected by white people. And so when you hear this history of us versus the white man, and we're just fighting against him, that's the red meme Black history. And now that is good to solidify who you are against everybody else. However, you just can't see the world simply as this didactic us versus them, because in reality, you've got to work with everybody. The second view of Black history I think that there is the blue meme traditional. So traditional, you're solidifying who you are versus everybody else. So it's very much about tradition and building what is Blackness as opposed to whiteness. So it's not something where you're fighting against white people, but you're defining who you are against that. So this would be a history where you look at Blackness as, you had slavery, and then you had the Black church during the Freedmen's Bureau, and you had traditions and things built around blackness that separates us from whiteness. And so that type of history just works about how we're different and our traditions in fighting against, not fighting against, because that's red mean, but our traditions that make us different from white people. So you would talk about jumping the broom, sweet potato pies that we consider to be African American now, which in reality is something that's Scotch Irish. Jumping the broom, again, Scotch Irish, not African. Now, a lot of people won't be angry in the comments because I said jumping the broom isn't African, but it's not. They've done studies on this before. And it's solidifying how we're different than other people, okay? The next version would be the orange meme the orange meme history. And this is the history I grew up with, and they taught me a lot when I was in school. So this is the history of the first black man to do open heart surgery, or the black guy, the Ben Carson, who separated the conjoined twins that were conjoined at the head, black people that invented things. This is all orange meme history. Now this is very interesting because if you study black history from an orange meme standpoint, what's going to happen is you're going to say that you're going to see it. You're not going to want to have systematic change. You're going to see America as something that if you work hard enough, you'll be able to overcome and be successful in. And so you're not advocating for systematic change anymore. You're just applauding the people who can break through in spite of all the barriers. So because it's not this orange meme history is something that's challenging to the white power structure, that's why you see George W. Bush being the guy who advocated for the African American History Museum. And if you want to go and read up on this, you can. But George W. Bush was instrumental in the current African American History Museum. Not only was he an advocate, he called up other Republicans to back him up. So he liked this idea of having a museum for the first black man to do this, first black man to get in the NFL, first black cheerleader in the NCAA. They like that history because it's saying that you can overcome without any real systematic change. And once you overcome without really changing the system, we will exalt you, and you're going to be exalted by blacks and whites. So that's why you see George W. Bush being a big advocate for the African American History Museum. Now, the next stage would be the green meme stage, and I'm not exactly sure how black history works out in this green meme postmodernist stage, but I think I'm more working with this green meme black history with my blog than I am anything else. And so one of the people I consider a postmodern black historian would be James Baldwin. So he understands, he's a person who comes in, he understands America, but he understands it from this very questioning standpoint. So one of the things he talks about a lot is that all the immigrants that came here didn't come for freedom. Irish people came for potatoes. Many people came for good jobs. So he attacks a lot of the myths of America. Now, he's very much pro-American. He says he's an American before anything else. But he does question and call out things that are negative in America a lot. And when he explains history in his writings, he explains it in a way that tears down a lot of the American myths of exceptionalism. And once you tear down these myths of exceptionalism, you can deal with things as they are in brass tacks. And that's going to allow you to functionally deal with America, especially as a black person, because you understand how America fundamentally is, and you can guard yourself against things that are detrimental to you. So the green meme black history is something I'm still working on. So I'm still working on that piece. One book I would recommend everyone reads is The Idea of History. It's a great book by R.G. Collingsworth. This isn't an integral book, but it shows you how different ideas of history persisted in different eras of time. And once you understand that, when you read a history going forward, you won't just simply read the history for the facts. You'll start questioning what's the basic agenda of telling history in this manner. Is telling history in this manner meant to just simply inform me of facts? Or is this going to support the myth of exceptionalism of a group of people or a country? Is it there to motivate me to fight against a certain ideal? And once you understand it from this more fundamental standpoint, when you read histories, you'll be more apt and more ready to really question it. And that's very important if you're black. So, thank you. And I hope you continue to watch and subscribe, like the video. And if you feel like the content was good, give through PayPal at sdandrace@gmail.com. Thanks and bye.